Awkward silences, difficult celebrities, unexpected disasters, and every curveball live TV can throw. She's done it all with a smile that hides a razor-sharp wit, a wit that most guests never see because most guests don't require it. But on a Tuesday morning in March, Prince Harry walked onto her set with an attitude that demanded the full Kelly Ripa experience. He came expecting deference. He came expecting softballs. He came expecting that his title would shield him from the kind of scrutiny ordinary mortals face. He was wrong. Within 30 minutes, Kelly Ripa would deliver a masterclass in how to handle an entitled guest, landing comeback after devastating comeback, while her husband Mark backed her up with the precision of a well-trained tag team. By the time Harry ripped off his microphone and stormed off the set, he'd been verbally dismantled on live television. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit subscribe and smash that like button. Now, let's get into what really happened that morning. The familiar opening music of Live with Kelly and Mark filled the studio as the audience clapped enthusiastically. Kelly emerged first, radiant in a coral dress, followed by Mark, whose easy charm complemented her quick wit perfectly. They danced briefly to the music before settling into their hosting chairs. "Good morning, everyone," Kelly beamed. "We have an incredible show today. Seriously, Mark, I've been looking forward to this all week." Mark nodded warmly. "Our guest needs no introduction, though he's certainly provided many of his own over the years. He's a prince, a podcaster, a memoirist. Please welcome Prince Harry." The audience erupted in applause as Harry emerged from backstage. His smile was wide but didn't quite reach his eyes. The expression of someone who'd already decided this would be a performance rather than a conversation. He settled onto the guest's sofa with the posture of someone granting an audience rather than joining one. "Harry, thank you so much for being here," Kelly said warmly. "Thanks for having me," Harry replied flatly. "So," Kelly began, "you've been living in California for a few years now. How are you finding it?" Harry tilted his head with a slight smirk. "I don't really define myself by geography, Kelly. That's very American, isn't it? Reducing people to where they live." Kelly's smile didn't waver. "Well, we also define people by what they do, but you've been pretty quiet on that front lately, so I thought geography was the safer topic." The audience laughed. Harry's smirk faltered slightly. Mark jumped in smoothly. "Speaking of what you do, you've been working with your foundation. Mental health advocacy, veterans issues. How's that going?" "It's going well," Harry's response was clipped. "We're making real, substantive change, not the performative stuff that passes for activism these days." "That's great," Kelly said. "Can you tell us about any specific initiatives?" Harry sighed impatiently. "I get asked that constantly. Tell us something specific, as if my work can be reduced to sound bites for morning television." Kelly nodded thoughtfully. "You're right. Sound bites are terrible, so take your time. We've got a whole segment. Really paint the picture for us." Harry blinked, seeming caught off guard by the invitation. "Well, it's complicated. Systemic change doesn't fit neatly into—" "Take as long as you need," Kelly interrupted sweetly. "We're literally here for you. The floor is yours." An uncomfortable silence stretched as Harry searched for words. Mark filled it helpfully. "You know, most guests love this part, the chance to really explain their passion projects without time pressure." The work speaks for itself," Harry finally managed. Kelly smiled brightly. "Does it? Because I actually tried to research your foundation before today, and the website was mostly photos and mission statements. Very little about actual programs or measurable outcomes. We don't publicize everything we do." "Right, because publicity is bad. Except when it's Netflix documentaries or memoirs or podcast deals. Then publicity is fine." The audience stirred with surprised laughter. Harry's expression darkened. "That's different. Those are ways of telling my own story. To millions of people, very privately." Kelly's eyes sparkled with mischief. "I'm just trying to understand the distinction. Publicity for your charitable work is crass, but publicity for your personal grievances is noble?" Harry straightened in his seat. "You're twisting my words." "I'm using your words. There's a difference." "Mark, am I twisting?" Mark shook his head solemnly. "I heard the same thing you heard. He said he doesn't publicize his charity work. Then you pointed out that he does publicize other things. That's just logic." "Basic logic," Kelly agreed. "They teach it in regular schools, the kind without butlers." The audience laughed openly now. Harry's face reddened. I don't appreciate being mocked, and I don't appreciate being condescended to, Kelly replied smoothly. But here we are. Should we start over? I'll ask simple questions, and you can answer them without implying that I'm too stupid to understand your complex charitable work. Harry stared at her, clearly recalibrating. Fine, let's start over. Great. So, Harry, how are you? Really? I'm wonderful. Thriving, actually. Life has never been better. That's great to hear. You look... Kelly paused, studying him. You look like someone who's definitely thriving. I am. The constant need to say so is very convincing. Mark coughed to hide a laugh. Harry's jaw tightened. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just that genuinely happy people usually don't need to announce it repeatedly. They just are happy. It radiates. But maybe you radiate differently in California. The light's different there. I am happy. Third time, Kelly noted. That's 3 I'm happy declarations in 2 minutes. Mark, how many times do I tell you I'm happy on an average day? Mark pretended to think. Maybe once. Usually you just seem happy, or you complain about traffic. There's not a lot of insisting involved. Right, because insistence is usually what people do when they're trying to convince themselves of something. Harry leaned forward aggressively. You don't know anything about my life. You're absolutely right, which is why I keep asking questions. But every time I do, you bite my head off. It's almost like you don't want anyone looking too closely at this thriving life of yours. I came here to share my story. Then share it. I'm asking, how are you? What's a typical day like? What makes you happy? These are not hard questions, Harry. They're the kind of things people discuss at dinner parties. Unless your dinner parties are very different from mine. They probably are, Harry muttered. Probably. Mine usually have guests who can answer basic questions without treating them as attacks. But I understand, different cultures. Mark leaned in. Harry, I think what Kelly's getting at is that you seem really defensive, and we haven't done anything to warrant it. We've asked about California, your work, your happiness. These are the world's gentlest questions. The framing. What framing? Kelly asked. I literally said, how are you? That's how every conversation in America starts. It's not a trap. It's just talking. Harry crossed his arms. Fine. What do you want to know? How's Megan? The shift in Harry's demeanor was immediate, a flash of defensiveness quickly masked with careful neutrality. She's great. She's wonderful. Next question. That's all we get? She's great? Harry, you've written entire books about your relationship. You've done multi-hour documentaries. And now you can't give us more than 2 words? Some things are private. Since when? Kelly's question was sharp, but delivered with a smile. You published conversations with your dying grandmother. You wrote about your brother's alleged physical attack on you. You described intimate details of your wedding night. But Megan's well-being is where you draw the privacy line? Harry's face flushed deeper. That's different. It keeps being different. The rules keep changing depending on what makes you comfortable. That's not privacy, that's strategic disclosure. Mark nodded. She's got a point. You can't claim privacy as a principle when you selectively abandon it whenever it suits your narrative. I'm not going to discuss my wife. Then why did you write a whole book discussing your wife, and your father, and your brother, and the institution that raised you? Kelly spread her hands. I'm genuinely confused, Harry. Is your life private or isn't it? Because you seem to want it both ways. I share what I choose to share. Exactly. It's about control, not privacy. You want to control what people know, which is fine, but don't dress it up as some principled stance when it's really just strategic media management. Harry stood up slightly before sitting back down, a false start that betrayed his agitation. You're being very hostile. I'm asking questions. You're experiencing them as hostile because you don't have good answers. That's not my fault. The audience murmured approvingly. Harry looked around the studio as if searching for allies and finding none. Maybe we should change the subject, Mark suggested diplomatically. Happy to, Kelly agreed. Harry, you've been very critical of the British monarchy, the institution, the family dynamics, the media relationships. Do you ever miss it? Miss being trapped in a system that almost destroyed me? No. What about your family, your father, your brother? Do you miss them? Something flickered in Harry's eyes. Pain, maybe, quickly suppressed. That's complicated. It always is. But you've made it more complicated, haven't you? By making private disputes public? I had no choice. You had many choices. You could have worked things out privately. You could have stayed silent. You could have left without burning bridges. You chose to write a book. You chose to do documentaries. You chose to give interviews to Oprah. Every step of the way, you had choices. And you chose exposure every single time. Harry shook his head. You don't understand the pressure. I understand pressure perfectly. I've been on live television 5 days a week for over 20 years. Everything I do is scrutinized. Every outfit, every comment, every interview. The difference is, I don't write tell-all books about my colleagues when things get hard. I just deal with it. Your situation isn't comparable. You're right. Your situation comes with palaces and titles and generational wealth. My situation comes with alarm clocks and traffic and normal problems. And yet somehow, I managed to handle my pressure without declaring war on everyone who's ever wronged me. Mark chimed in. She's also never had anyone call her a princess, just to be clear. Although some guests have called me other things, Kelly added with a wink. The audience laughed, momentarily breaking the tension. Harry did not laugh. You're making light of serious issues. I'm pointing out that you're not the only person who's ever faced challenges. I'm pointing out that your response to those challenges, constant public grievance, is a choice, not an inevitability. You could have handled things differently. You chose not to. I chose survival. Did you? Because from where I'm sitting, you've chosen a very public, very lucrative version of survival that involves Netflix deals and book advances and speaking fees. If that's survival, it's a pretty comfortable version of it. Harry's voice rose. You don't know what I've sacrificed. What have you sacrificed, specifically? You still have money, more than ever. You still have fame, more than ever. You still have a platform, much bigger than before. What exactly did you give up, Harry? My family. They're still there. They haven't gone anywhere. You're the one who left. You're the one who keeps attacking them publicly. If that relationship is broken, maybe consider who broke it. They drove me away. Or you drove yourself away and blamed them for it. That's also a possibility. The story you tell isn't the only version of events. Harry was breathing heavily now, his composure cracking visibly. You have no idea what goes on inside that family. Neither does anyone else, except you've decided to share your version with the entire world, which means people are going to have opinions about it. That's the deal you made. You don't get to sell your story and then complain when people analyze it. Mark nodded. If you wanted privacy, you shouldn't have written a memoir. Pretty basic stuff. I wrote the memoir to correct false narratives, and created new narratives that your family disputes, Kelly countered. So now there are competing versions of events, and everyone has to decide who to believe. You've invited that scrutiny. You can't be angry when people actually scrutinize. I'm not angry. You've been angry since you sat down. You've been defensive, hostile, and condescending. You've treated every question as an attack. Harry, I've interviewed hundreds of people on this show. Most of them manage to have pleasant conversations, even when discussing difficult topics. You've made a pleasant conversation impossible, because you're not being pleasant. I've been professional. I've been fair. I've asked reasonable questions about your life, your work, your family, all things you've discussed publicly many times before. You're the one who's been unpleasant. Harry stood up abruptly. I think we're done here. We're only halfway through your segment, Mark pointed out. I don't care. This was supposed to be a friendly interview. It was supposed to be a conversation, Kelly corrected. Conversations involve questions and answers. You've answered almost nothing. You've deflected, complained, and played victim. That's not a conversation. That's a filibuster. I'm not playing victim. Harry, you've spent the last 20 minutes complaining about how hard your life is, how you were trapped, how you were pressured, how you were mistreated. At some point, explaining your perspective becomes playing victim, and you crossed that line about 15 minutes ago. I'm just telling the truth. You're telling your truth, your subjective, selective, strategically curated version of events. That's not the same as objective truth, and you seem genuinely incapable of recognizing the difference. Harry pointed at her, his hand shaking slightly. You're just like all the rest, pretending to be sympathetic while actually looking for ways to tear me down. I haven't torn you down. You've torn yourself down. Every answer you've given has made you look worse, and that's not my doing, it's yours. This interview is over. Running away when things get hard, there's that pattern again. Harry froze mid-movement, stung by the observation. I'm not running. You're literally walking toward the exit in the middle of a conversation because you didn't like the questions. What would you call that? Self-preservation. I'd call it fragility. I'd call it the behavior of someone who spent so long being protected from criticism that he can't handle even gentle pushback. I'd call it proof that maybe, just maybe, you're not as thriving as you claim to be. Harry's face contorted with barely suppressed rage. You know nothing about my life. I know what you've shown me today, and what you've shown me is someone who can't answer basic questions without getting defensive. Someone who insists he's happy while acting absolutely miserable. Someone who demands empathy while offering none. Kelly paused. That's what I know, Harry, and I learned it all in the last 20 minutes. Mark stood up slowly, positioning himself as a supportive presence beside Kelly. For what it's worth, Harry, we didn't set out to make you look bad. We just wanted a conversation. You're the one who made it into something else. Because you were attacking me. We were talking to you, Kelly said simply. If you can't tell the difference, that's a bigger problem than anything we've discussed today. Harry ripped off his microphone, throwing it onto the sofa. You'll regret this, both of you. I doubt it, Kelly replied calmly. But I think you might. This is all on camera, Harry. Everyone watching can see exactly what happened. And what happened is that you came in here with a chip on your shoulder and treated us like enemies for no reason. You are enemies. We're talk show hosts. We do cooking segments and celebrity games. We're not the British tabloids, Harry. We're not the paparazzi who chased your mother. We're two people in New York who wanted to have a nice conversation with you about your life, and you made that impossible. Harry strode toward the exit, then turned back one final time. You're all the same, every single one of you. You pretend to care, but you're just looking for content, for clicks, for ratings. Kelly smiled sadly. Maybe, or maybe you've been hurt so many times that you can't recognize genuine interest anymore. Maybe you've built walls so high that everyone looks like an enemy from up there. I don't know. But I do know that what you've shown today isn't strength or honesty or speaking truth to power. It's just pain looking for a target. Don't psychoanalyze me. I'm observing. You've told us repeatedly how happy you are while acting like the angriest person I've ever interviewed. You've demanded empathy for your struggles while showing none for anyone else. You've complained about public scrutiny while actively seeking more publicity. These are contradictions, Harry, and until you reconcile them, I don't think you'll find the peace you're looking for. Harry stood frozen in the doorway, something flickering behind his eyes. Pain, recognition, or maybe just exhaustion. You don't know anything, he said finally, but his voice had lost its edge. I know what I saw today, and I hope it's not the whole picture. I hope there's a happier, more secure version of you that we didn't get to meet. But if there is, you didn't bring him here. Harry left without another word. The studio doors closed behind him with a heavy thud. For a moment, neither Kelly nor Mark spoke. Then Kelly turned to face the camera, her composure fully intact despite the chaos that had just unfolded. Well, she said, her signature smile returning, that was something. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have a cooking segment that I promise will be much less dramatic, unless Mark burns something again. Mark laughed, following her lead. That was one time. It was 3 times. The audience laughed as the theme music played and the show cut to commercial. The footage went viral within hours. Clips proliferated across every platform as viewers watched Kelly Ripa deliver comeback after devastating comeback, each one landing with surgical precision, while Harry grew increasingly defensive and hostile. What do you think? Did Kelly handle it perfectly, or should she have backed off? Was Harry out of line, or did he have legitimate concerns? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to